Alex, thanks so much for your time and for joining us today. Just to share a little bit about your experience with Load. So, Alex is with Bitfarm, but I will let you introduce yourself and tell us a bit first about the company, and then we'll get into the details into how you get to know Load. So, Alex, you can take the mic now.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. So Alex Brammer, I run global operations, global data center operations for Bitfarms. Bitfarms is a publicly traded Bitcoin mining company and energy infrastructure company. We currently operate roughly 460 megawatts of data center capacity across 4 countries. So we've got 8 data centers in Quebec, 4 in the United States, 2 in Paraguay, and 1 in Argentina. My experience in Bitcoin mining goes back about 5 years, and I've been in operations roles since then. Where I really started to run facilities was the 200 megawatt Bitcoin mine that was attached to the nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania, formerly under Talon. And then my career prior to coming into Bitcoin mining, I was in the military for 16 years as an operator.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. And now, how did you hear about Load, or why did you decided to start to give it a chance? Because you were running your own solution, right? So can you walk us through that?
Yep. Yeah, so I've known Mehdi for a while now, just through industry conferences, and have seen Load kind of, even before I joined Bitfarms. I've been at Bitfarms now for about 9 months. Even before I joined Bitfarms, I had seen Load kind of gaining steam, gaining adoption. As I was thinking about, when I came into Bitfarms has historically run a proprietary miner management system that they built years ago and have been updating continuously. And my experience, particularly around instrumentation controls and automation, led me to kind of take a look at the system that we were using and realize that there was quite a bit of low-hanging fruit for improvement in terms of operational improvement of the data centers and frankly financial performance. What made so that's kind of the demand was there. I have used several different mining management software platforms that folks that are going to be watching this have probably heard of. There were 3 things really as I was getting familiarized with the platform that really stuck out to me and suggested to me that it would be worth at least piloting it. The first was just the strength of the robustness of the automation capabilities. So the Rails functionality is probably the most robust automation solution in terms of what are the points that we're monitoring and what type of state changes in the actual data center itself can we make in an automated way. A lot of the miner management software platforms have simple scripts that they're running in the background that then they abstract into a UI. When I started really digging into what you can do with Rails, it not only was it giving us the ability to control our data centers in a more fine-tuned and fine-grained way, but it's actually led to the ability to, optimize our headcount because we have now the ability to automate things that we used to have to hire against. And so it's actually allowing me to cost optimize, it's revenue optimization, but it's also cost optimization. So that was the first critical part. The second thing is the energy orchestration and strategy capabilities of Load. So, as I'm looking at the platform, we operate in deregulated energy markets now in Pennsylvania. Our center of gravity in Pennsylvania is growing. That's in PJM. We participate in coincidental peak avoidance, economic demand response, sync reserve, like these programs that PJM offers for ancillary services and demand response. And our ability to use automation software that is purpose built for deregulated energy markets is incredibly valuable to me. Again, I think a lot of the mining management software platforms try to offer this, and some of them do it better than others. But certain features, specifically around coincidental peak analysis, really made this valuable to us. Just on that coincidental peak discussion, for folks that are watching this that are unfamiliar, when you are executing a peak avoidance strategy in a deregulated energy market, typically the curtailment service providers will be fairly conservative as they are issuing these calls for peak avoidance. And so they're going to drop your load super early, and then they're going to bring you up super late because the financial consequences of being fully loaded through a peak event are fairly severe. What I like about Load is that it gives us real-time insight into actual peaks and historical year-to-date peaks, and so that I can start to shave time off of the front and back of a peak avoidance event. shaving time off the front and back really means that I'm being more specific around being able to forecast when that peak LMP is going to occur, and I'm conserving revenue on the way down and on the way up. And that was a really unique, a unique piece of the offering that I keep. The third thing really is around, and maybe I should have put this first, but running operations of the size that we operate and the complexity that we operate, particularly around different jurisdictions, different data center designs, it requires a lot of customization of any software platform that we use, right? And so, these mining management software providers built a standard product, but then any large customer that has complex operations is going to have a lot of custom features that they need to integrate. Partially because, similar to a traditional data center that has a building management system and a EPMS and DSIM, the mining management software platform becomes kind of the core. It's almost the hub of your operations. And when you're running a data center, you're going to want to tie in a lot of the specific systems that run other, power, cooling, network into your miner management software platform, such that you can use a centralized management, portal to run everything, setting automation, Load calls them rails, against things like differential pressure, fan speed, temperature, curtailment ramp rates. What I really appreciated and kind of learned early on in the testing process is that the Load team is super responsive to feature requests. They prioritize features, and I think it's because they realize, one, it's a customer acquisition and a customer retention strategy. But two, the more integrations and features that they build into the base platform that they can then, and I'm fine with this, that they can then offer as a standard feature in the product set, only makes the product more valuable to other customers. And so, as we started to ask for custom features, just the dev timelines, the turn on the feature development, frankly, like the fact that the features work, for the most part, first time out of the box as requested, really gives me comfort in, evolving our operational and our business model, as the mining industry changes and matures, as our data center strategy changes and matures. I know that when I ask for a custom feature, it's not going to just, get put onto the roadmap. It will be actioned and it will be implemented quickly. And that, it's just a huge value proposition for us.
Can you share like some of the specific results you got from Load after you're starting using it?
Yeah. No, I mean, the integration process, again, I think for a single site, the integration process is pretty easy. It took some time, and again, credit to the customer support that Load offers to integrate this across 15 different data centers. But particularly in the sites where we operate in deregulated energy markets, it was fast, and we prioritized those for obvious reasons. And then we went through testing. There was a testing integration phase, integration with our curtailment service provider, integration with the adjacent software stack in the data center, and almost immediately we started automating our down and up ramps for particularly around peak saver events or coincidental peak avoidance. Almost flawless, worked almost flawlessly. Now there are some things that you have to tune. And so, having the ability to tune, like we started off pretty conservatively before we validated that the software would work. So we had a 20-minute down ramp period. We were able to tighten that up over the span of about 10 days to like a 7-minute down ramp. And I think even that is a little bit conservative. So we're probably going to continue to inch closer to that margin. But when the API calls are made, Load responds great. It also gives us the ability to tier our ramp back up. And so, for certain types of electrical distribution systems, for certain types of networks, you don't want everything coming on all at once. And so with the Rails functionality specifically, it's really easy to bring Load back on based on the constraints that you have, either from an infrastructure perspective or a market perspective. But overall, super happy with the progress, and we continue to optimize with the team, to this day.
If you had to say one thing about Load to a friend that is asking you for advice, if he's thinking about different tools that he might use for his site, what would be one thing that you could say to him?
That's tough. Like I said, it's a rich product, and so there's a lot of things that we rely on. I talked about the Rails functionality. I think the way that you guys have built Rails and the number of things that you can automate would be my number one thing around like that. I think in terms of a technical value proposition, that was the number one thing. Um, there are so many different ways that you can apply automation to your data center operations that are facilitated by the fact that that specific feature, and it's almost like it's doing it a disservice to call it a specific feature, but that specific feature is so robust that it gives you really like it's not just around automating curtailments, but there are so many different things, and it applies to everything from your interaction with power markets, compliance, ensuring max uptime for miners, so automating things like reboots. I think the Rails functionality is really kind of head and shoulders above anything else that I've seen.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing, Alex. So just to wrap it up, you were using your own solution. You through connections you started talking with the team, with Load, with Nima, knowing them, and then you look at some of the features, got some additional things like custom solutions for you, and the solution is that you see more, basically, you control better the uptime and downtime, right? Which of course it comes down to revenue and taking care of all the investments that you have across these sites, right? Any final thoughts, anything else you would like to add? Maybe a question you think I should ask and I didn't?
No, I think the only thing, I guess the last thing that I'll add, and it's a little bit of it dovetails with the customer support, just generally speaking. The willingness, like in order to do this, we've got a handful of external vendors that you require kind of collaborative work with in order to do the integrations that we're talking with. So we're talking, external asset management vendors, curtailment service providers, utilities even. The ability for the Load team, the willingness for the Load team to spend time in building those workflows and building those projects out and executing on them for the external integrations, and just the ability for them to clearly communicate kind of capabilities and requirements makes it easy. Like it makes it easier for me because I can kind of put someone on my team against a specific project. I can rely on them and I can rely on Load to be able to clearly articulate the need with an external vendor, and then I can rely on Load to follow through and get the feature developed, even if they're relying on an external third party. I haven't had an issue yet, and that's a pretty unique. When you're relying on two of your vendors to be talking to one another, you really have to trust both of them in order to get the work done that you need to get done. And I think that that's a huge value proposition for Load, both on a technical and a commercial basis.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much for your time, Alex, and for sharing all your experience. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Thank you.